We were able to reduce some transportation routes and also eliminated the 4 o'clock bus run. That saved us about $118,000. We eliminated the intervention rooms, which saved $183,000. We also, historically, well, for the last 5 years, we've had 2 separate line items, a $300,000 line item for technology purchase and a $300,000 line item for textbooks. Part of that reduction plan was to alternate that money back and forth between curriculum and technology. It actually doesn't get alternated so that one gets 0 and the other one gets all. It's kind of split up between the two, but one gets more one year and the other one gets more the other year, because there are some renewable things that we just have to pay for, licenses and the MAP tests and things that are an every year expense. Anyway, that all still doesn't sum up to the $5.6 million until you add in the $2 million estimate for sale of vacant property. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that tonight. And as you know, because we had some, for lack of a better technical term, some lucky breaks in terms of some tax tribunal money that came in, we were able to balance this year's budget without selling any property. But we still have that potential, and that'll be part of our discussion in a few minutes. Any questions about last year's?
The vacant property sales came at what again?
Our projection last year was around $2 million. Sherry's going to refine that for you. It's actually a little bit less than that.
Okay.
And, well, we'll talk about it when we get to that item. Any other questions on last year's?
Carl, I have a question. I don't know if it goes, Madam Chair, if we talk about this point, but out of the reduction plan that we made, was there anything that we eliminated that caused us a lot of grief that we need to look back into putting it back in and maybe trying to look at something else? Is there anything that just sticks out that because we did it, and maybe now that it's been a year, maybe it's something that we need to put back that's not working? Or?
That's a good question, and I'm going to ask some of the directors for feedback there. I know what I've heard, but have you folks heard of any?
I'm looking through the list as we're talking.
I know, like, for instance, one of the questions that we had was in regards to the elimination of the after-school bus run and how that, if that has affected the after-school programs, especially at the high school. And
I'm going to answer that only because I was just talking to the principal about this the other day. There hasn't been a significant reduction in students being able to utilize the after-school programming that's available to them, including tutoring, academic programs, as well as the sports programs.
Okay.
Are there more kids waiting for rides? Yeah.
I just got here from one.
Right. Right.
So.
I think the biggest, and I think the most difficult pain at the beginning of the school year was the elimination of the intervention rooms. That was a very tough decision that you had to make, and it was tough for the buildings to work out ways to make that work. I think if we had the principals here, they might be able to elaborate a little bit more, but I'm just going to paint you the rosy portion. There's been bumps along the road. I think the high school is able to handle it. The middle school, we're still trying to make our way through that scenario. But I don't think it's a deal breaker. I don't think it's something that they can't continue to work through. They're working through it, yeah.
Okay. I was just curious. Thank you.
Yeah, those were basically, you summarized what I've heard. I don't know if anybody else has heard anything. And I think if we gave the principals the choice on the intervention rooms, they'd want to have them back, but they are making it work. I know Don Morris and Sherry and I have been working real hard on the cleaning schedule and the maintenance, and it was stressful in the beginning, but again, it's functioning.
One other question. As we look into next year, and Sherry, maybe this is to you, our equipment for our custodians, is all our equipment up to par?
No.
Is it something we need to look at?
We need to line item something in the budget to replace some of that equipment.
Okay.
I mean, we're at the point where we're taping it together and making it work. Is it efficient? No. But again, we need to look at those things in terms of putting some money into the budget to try to replace them.
Okay. That was my questions. Thank you.
I got something too that I don't know if it falls into here, but last year we we approved that company to come in and do some advertising for us. How has that
You know,
been going?
I checked in with him because I knew this question was going to come up eventually. Really, there has been nothing in terms of marketing sales for Romulus at this point. If you go on the website, there is a banner. I think I looked on Friday, and I can't remember, it was Green Water or some company that deals in the green way of doing life. But, you know, he's still. No, I don't want to.
saw it too.
It was something green,
It's
yeah.
green.
None of us clicked on it. So.
It's there.
Yes, we did.
Well,
You know,
there's a
Jerry and I
company around
clicked
that's called Blue
at
Water,
this
that's
point,
why.
he has a big box store that's interested in some sales on our website. So, but you know, to be quite frank with you, nothing at this point.
Okay.
But we're not losing nothing.
Again, it's not that we invested a lot of money, or we really only invested a few hours of the technology director's time to put the banner up. But I'll keep you informed because I was curious myself.
Any other questions, discussions on that? Okay, so next, let's talk about the decision, budget decision timeline. I have a handout for you. Let me know if I'm short. Oh, actually, here's one more you put in. 'cause I already have- Well, I don't want to give them out until the board approves them.
Okay, gotcha.
We'll post this.
We're short one copy.
One copy? Do you still have an extra?
John and I can
gave
share.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so on top, you see the four financial priorities: preserving our K-12 instructional program, top priority; maintaining our physical facilities and transportation fleet, number 2; building a fund balance in accordance with MSBO recommendations, number 3; and keeping school taxes low, number 4. All right, so let's go down to, whoops, it should say 1213, not 1313.
Mockingbird Lane.
I don't know how that came in.
Isn't that rule 13 right?
That'd be interesting.
So, tonight is March 5th, and just like we read on the agenda, we're going to continue our budget needs and realities discussion. Sherry gave you an update on budget variables, and she's going to review some property appraisal data. April 2nd is our next scheduled study session for budget. Again, we'll start off with an update on the variables because it's a changing story every couple of weeks. And what we would like to, our goal in that meeting is to determine a dollar amount that the board says this is how much we feel we need to cut out of the budget for 1213. April 16th, the next budget session, again, updated the budget variables, and once we have the recommendation from the board, and you'll probably recall some conversations we had last year, the board's, we feel that the board's place is to make a recommendation as to how much to cut from the budget, and then our job is to come up with some ways to cut that and give you some options. So it's our hope then to have those options available to the board based on what we know and have done, and also input from all of you on what those options would be so that we can attain or come really close to whatever that target is. That would be by April 16th. And again, so this gives us a pretty reasonable timeline. Now, June 11th, which is our first regular board meeting, it would be our hope that our budget reductions for 1213 are all finalized by then, because you might recall we have some timeline requirements for staff layoff and also for teacher transfer and those kinds of things. So some of that is a June 1st deadline. So we hope to have most of it in place so that you can finalize it on June 11th. But, you never know, and so we may end up having to have a special meeting in June to do that if we're not able to meet that June 11th deadline. And then finally, on June 25th would be the date. Historically, the board approves the budget for the next year on the last board meeting in June. The deadline is June 30th, and you were usually just under the wire on that. So questions or comments about the timeline?
Go ahead. Okay, I just had a question. So when we're putting our budget together, since we have a millage that's coming up in May, do we do one without the millage and one with the millage?
Well,
She hit my
one of the,
I mean, how
one
do
of the
you-
reasons there's a
Two
big,
scenarios?
one of the reasons there's a big gap between April 16th and June 11th
For the millage?
is because of May 8th. You know, that, we don't know, and I don't know that we're gonna do anything publicly that says both ways, but we're gonna be as prepared as we can for either eventuality, but that would be up to you how you wanna handle that.
Personally,
would
I
think-
think we should.
I would think we would almost have to be,
Right.
because you would have to be able to tell the residents, if we do not get
Right.
this millage, I
That's
mean,
what
this
we
is what's
discussed.
gonna
We
be
talked
gone.
about that,
Okay.
We talked
You
about
know,
having a special meeting
we
right
have
after
to-
the millage, like,
so
this is it.
We got it.
let the public know that if it doesn't pass, these are gonna get cut, and we
This
have a
is-
meeting on that Wednesday.
A plan A
A
and
special
a plan B.
meeting, so them cuts go into place effective then. So if we don't do anything, and we wait till June, July, or anything like that,
Right.
the community's gonna
It'll be
say,
a
well, you were
surprise.
crying wolf.
Okay, so what we'll do is,
I think the public needs to know what these cuts could possibly
well,
affect.
let's back up a little bit then. All right, so let's back up to April 2nd. Determine the budget reduction dollar amount. Should we revise that to say, with the approval of the hold harmless and also without?
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
And
I would definitely say without the whole harmless for sure,
at
because
the risk of poking a bear, how are we going to determine the budget reduction amount? Because it's been my position that if we are going to be, for lack of better phrasing or dependent upon the interpretation, out of balance by 2.9 million. In other words, we're spending 2.9 million more than revenue. Good business, we need to cut $2.9 million of expenses. And
Well,
if that
that's-
includes the millage, which means if the millage fails, then we're looking at $5 million.
Right.
Right.
You know, and we can rely on selling the property all we want. That's one-time money.
Right.
Right.
Once it's gone, it's gone.
Yep.
And
we have to
You
sell,
know.
that's the key word.
Right.
Yeah.
you can't
So-
kick the can further down the road anymore.
Well, and that's the reason that we want the board to determine that dollar amount, and that's a board decision. Do you do that, or do you look at just getting by and cutting $2.9 million, or really selling the property and cutting, a little over $1 million, And that's a discussion that we have to continue to develop, because I think we have 7 people on the board and we have some differences in opinions. But I'll just take you back to last year, around this time, and we were looking at, over a $5 million hole in the budget, and that turned into a little bit more than, I think it was a $4.3 million hole. So it reduced considerably. So again, that's all the more reason to put that decision off until the last possible moment. But you're absolutely right, Mr. McLaughlin. Do we want to just stay in the black this year, or do we want to have a truly balanced budget and make all the cuts necessary? And that's a tough decision.
Well, and thank you, and with all due respect, I don't think we should wait until the last possible moment, because then we end up in a reactionary phase. We had Scott here telling us we need to get out of that phase. We all know we need to get out of that phase. We can't keep reacting. We have to be proactive. And if that means 12/13s when we're gonna feel a lot of pain, we have to balance, because it's not gonna get better from Lansing. This is an election year, so everybody's playing games and making grandiose statements that they're not gonna support a reduction in the PPT. Wait till the summer session. I guarantee you the PPT will be gone by Christmas. Guaranteed. Without a full replacement.
So,
And that'll affect our ability with bonds,
Oh, yeah.
because that goes on everything, so.
So what I have so far by way of revisions is with and without the hold harmless on April 2nd, and then, of course, on April 16th as well. And did I hear that we want to schedule a special meeting for May 9th?
I would
I think we
personally
should.
say
I
we
think we
have it, and
should.
if it fails, then them cuts go into effect, because if you don't, the community's gonna think we're just crying wolf, and, we can always put it back on in November, and then we say, listen, we weren't joking, we
Because
really
they do
meant it.
ask, what if?
And there's so many times that we've had in the past, Carl, that with the millages, and
I hear
not
you.
just ours in the city, they say, oh, if you don't have this passed, this is what's gonna get cut, and the next day, everybody goes to work like they normally do. I mean, everybody still grabs their books and whatever. I think it's
understand.
gotta be, it's at the point where we gotta show them, they're wanting to see something, and
But now, is it
to say it that way.
2014 that the state caps for the healthcare will fall into place for